If we are all insurance companies, and that's the first thing we need to learn, what's the second thing we need to learn?
Well, so, from there you go to, well, I can manage some risks with insurance. And by the way, again, we've been doing this forever. Roman burial societies. It was a pooling of risk. Civil War pensions. And we've just been doing this forever. Then you have to kind of think about other risk management problems that you can't use insurance for. So that's where we get into options and diversification. Again, two things that many people think of as coming out of the 1960s and the revolution in quantitative finance. But again, of course, things we've been doing for millennia. So think about options. Sounds scary, actually been doing it for a long time. And in fact, the way I try to talk about options is not the usual way, which again is with payoff diagrams and quantitative examples, but with Lizzie Bennett and Pride and Prejudice. So some of you may know Jane Austen novels. In many ways, the plot line in many of those books is risk management. And so in particular, and Austen is clear about this, young men can make mistakes, young women cannot make mistakes. And what is the plot line of those novels? Typically, there's a young woman, Lizzie Bennett, suitors come along, they've got to decide who to take. And in fact, if you don't think about it as a risk management problem, just think about Mr. Collins's proposal to Lizzie Bennett, which is, has anybody ever read Pride and Prejudice or seen the movie? Oh, fantastic. So if you think about the Mr. Collins proposal, it's the worst proposal ever, right, to Lizzie, where he says, you're not that pretty, you're not that rich, here's a proposal on the table, I suggest you take it. And of course, he's playing on her risk aversion. And of course, her mom says, take it. Mm-hmm. And then she decides to kind of go gamble on the next one. Of course, he delivers that same proposal the next day to her friend, and she's like, done, I'll take it. This problem of a risk management problem is the first suitor comes along, he's nice and he's rich, but he's drunk. The second one is nice but poor. This is and you have to pick. The great part about these examples, though, is these characters intuit the logic of options and diversification. They talk about managing this risk problem in the way that we talk about managing risk in finance. So that's just a way of saying, in one of these books, it's fantastic. This woman has these 10 suitors. They're coming along. She's talking to her friend, and her friend is like, how are you going to decide? And at one point, she just says, well, if only I could marry all 10. Which, of course, is the essence of diversification, right? Yeah. You take a choice, you atomize it, you spread it out. Another one articulates an option portfolio strategy. This is all a way of saying that options are actually kind of in the way we think about the world. And in fact, that chapter ends with, I think, the perversion of options in our modern world, which is, I see young people all the time who come into my office, and some of you may know this term, because young people are preoccupied with optionality. What does that mean? People want more and more optionality in their life. And I see students and they're like, well, I'm gonna go work at this company because it'll give me some optionality. Yeah. I'll go do this degree because it'll give me some optionality. What does that mean? Well, I want to be able to do something in the future without the obligation to do it. And it all sounds great, except what I observe is that it goes horribly wrong, which is people who spend 5 or 10 years acquiring optionality end up getting good at one thing, which is buying optionality. Yeah. Right. And they forget the big lesson of options, which is actually, it's insurance. And you buy it so that you can take a big idiosyncratic risk. And then they spend the next 20, 30 years buying optionality, and it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. And they mislearn, in some sense, the most important lesson in finance, of options, which is you buy an option so you can then take a big risk. And these are kids who have so many safety nets and so much optionality already, because they're so smart and they come from loving families, right. And yet they feel compelled to buy more optionality. And it's almost absurd.
That's interesting.